So this guy right here can carry you to a top 4. However, you need to play the build right. The build is 5 Syndicate, 2 Vanguard, 2 Bruiser up front. It's a reroll comp. Let's break it down. Welcome back to another TFT breakdown. You know the drill by now. This is the channel where we break down the meta comps in the current patch so that you can ensure almost a guaranteed top 4 every time you load into a TFT game. Today, we're looking at Twisted Fate Syndicate Reroll. This is not a powerhouse of a comp in the current meta. You're not going to win out every single game, but you will almost always be guaranteed a top 4 if you're uncontested and you play it right. So grab a coffee if it's the morning or a drink at night, kick back, relax, put up your feet, and enjoy another TFT breakdown. Alright, so chapters if you want to jump ahead to a specific section, but just for the gist of the video, we're starting off with final board and items, then we're going over early game compositions, then we're going over augments, and then finally after augments we're going to talk about the gameplay. Now that we got that spiel out of the way, let's jump right into it. Final board and items. So this is a Twisted Fate Syndicate Reroll build. Essentially what you're going to want to do is roll down at level 6/level 7, depending on the game tempo and how many copies of Twisted Fate you have, for a 3-star Twisted Fate, 3-star Braum, 3-star Darius, and 3-star Draven. I know it sounds like a lot. It's basically 4 champions you need to 3-star. The priority goes to Braum and your Twisted Fate. So Twisted Fate is your primary carry. They're the one you're going to want to focus on 3-starring first. However, this build doesn't truly work unless you 3-star almost everybody. So once you have 50 gold and around 3-2 at level 6, you can roll down below 50 to try to get as many Twisted Fates as possible, along with Darius's. So this is where you roll for your 2-cost units. Get as many as possible, equal back up to 50 gold, and then level to 7. Even if you don't have 3-star Twisted Fate or 3-star Darius, it makes more sense to roll at 7 with this build, just for the key reasons that you also need a 3-star Braum. So once you've rolled down at 3-2 and you get a bunch of Twisted Fates, ideally you have more than 3, maybe 4, 5, 6 even. Equal back up, 50 gold, level 7. Once at level 7, you slow roll above 50 until you hit your 3-stars. So what you're going to want to do with those 3 stars is essentially make sure it's Braum with a hat and Twisted Fate with a hat once they're 3-starred. Braum is going to be your main tank. They're going to hold standard tank items. You can do Warm Mogs, Gargoyles, Protector's Vow, Spirit Visage, Brambles, Declaw, whatever you're able to make as pure tank items on Braum. Now Darius on the other hand, they're going to be your secondary tank. You can put utility tank items on them. So Sunfires, Even Shroud, Spark, those kind of items that you're able to make. Those all work wonders in this build as well. The Even Shroud for MF, when we talk about later with MF items. Obviously Spark for Twisted Fate. And then Sunfires just for the anti-heal in case you come across a Graves or a Shaco or a Zed. Your final board here at level 8 is going to be Darius, Braum, Misfortune, Shaco, and Twisted Fate. That's going to round out 5 Syndicate. Also up front, you're going to have Gragas and Rost. Those are going to be your Divinicorp, Bruiser Vanguard to complement Darius and Braum. And then you're going to have Draven on the backline as well for that rapid fire buff to power up your Twisted Fate. So that's your final board at level 8. Obviously, you're going to be at 7 most of the game. So when you're at 7, if you do hit that Misfortune, play them over the Rost or the Gragas, whoever you don't have 2-starred, just so you get that 5 Syndicate buff. Even better if you do somehow get an emblem, you can put the emblem on Rost or Gragas, or even Draven. This allows you to have that 5 Syndicate without Shaco, and you can take Shaco out. But regardless, once you 3-start everybody, you can go that level 8, and you can put in the 5 Syndicate, Bruiser, Vanguard combinations up front with Draven on the backline. Now, a key to accumulating this final board is you need to scout before you go this build. So we're going to talk about early game comps a little bit later on, but you need to ensure that there's nobody looking to 3-star Braum. So there's no other Syndicate or Vanguard players, because if there is, it might get a little tricky in the late game as this build does fall off big time. So you want to be able to stabilize through stage 4, early stage 5 before the big fast 9 builds really come to be and absolutely dominate the very late game. So it is going to be a little bit tricky playing this build, as obviously you don't cap out as high as some of the fast 9 builds, and you aren't playing for first in this situation. You're playing for 2 through 6. That's what type of build this is going to be. Most of the time you are going to top 4 if you 3-star everybody and get the right items and you have that tempo early game. But regardless, you need to understand that some games you're just not going to win. If you're handed this board and everybody else is high tempo with fast 9 boards, crazy high rolls, this is a build that can stabilize you through that mid section of the placements and allow you for that 3rd, 4th, maybe even 5th to minimize your damages in certain situations. This is definitely one of those builds that you can just have in your back pocket as well to play if the game's giving it to you, as that'll almost guarantee you a top 4. Or if there's no other lines available and the game's slightly giving it to you, it is an option to go in those games like I mentioned where everything kind of looks bleak. But regardless, I've never bottom forward with this build. I've only ever top forward. So that's a plus as well with regards to this build. If you hit all your units, you're primed for success. So continuing on with items, Twisted Fate, again, main carry. The items that they like the most and best in slot is Rageblade, Gunblade, and then Archangels. If you're able to get a Radiant item, so a Master Rework or just a Radiant Relic Augment, and you take that, if available, take the Archangel Staff, the Radiant version. It absolutely clears boards later in the game, and that'll put you up to potentially winning the game with that Radiant Archangels. I gave it a try in a double up game with one of my buddies, and we were just melting boards. Alternatively, there's a couple artifact items that you can put on TF to help boost that power. The first is Flicker Blade instead of Rage Blade, or you can use the Static Shiv artifact item. Your secondary carry right next to your TF is Misfortune. Misfortune got a bit of an AD buff last patch and is doing really well if there's no uncontested Dynamo players, as there's a lot of vertical Dynamo lines that people are going. However, in this build, MF works amazing as a secondary carry. You essentially just toss your AD items on MF, so i.e. Guard Breaker, Last Whisper, you can even put Shojins on MF if you want them to cast a lot quicker. Whatever you have kind of left over and available, and they'll serve as your secondary damage dealer, and they do a lot of damage. If it's a high item game and you're getting a bunch of items, you have fully kitted out Darius, fully kitted out Braum, TF, and MF, you can put some utility items on Draven as well. You can put Last Whisper, Void Staff just for that shred and that sunder. So yeah, that's the final board composition and all the items that you need to propel you to get that top 4 with this build. Now that you know the general gist of this build, let's dive into the specifics that truly make this build work, such as the early game. All right, welcome to the early game section of this video. We're gonna go over the early game here. If you skipped ahead, welcome. I implore you to go check out the first half, as it was a great discussion on the final board and items. However, if you know everything regarding that and you have your guides available, here's the early game that you came for. The early game is pretty standard. There is only one early game that you want to play this build with, as there's no point forcing this build. As I mentioned before, it's really, really difficult to win out with this build. You're aiming for a top 4 at best. So if you get an early TF or you get an early Rageblade, those are the conditions to go in this build. You have to have the game hand you this build. If you go and try to pick this build out of RNG, it's not going to work. Maybe you can make it work if no one else is contesting you at all. There's no Braum contest. No Darius contest with Cypher, and nobody's playing TF early game, then yes, you can force this. Otherwise, let it come to you. So to start, a TF, a Kog'Maw, some kind of rapid fire combination in the early game works wonders, again, with that Rageblade. You do need that Rageblade. It isn't the greatest if you start off with a different item with TF, so if you get an early Archangels or you get an early Gunblade, it's no bueno, as the Rageblade is essentially going to be the only thing that'll be able to propel you through the early rounds and save as much health as possible for the later rerolls at 7. Up front, you can have some Syndicate. If you get an early Braum, bonus, play Braum with Darius. Otherwise, you're going to go Darius, Shaco. You could put some Vanguard, some Bruisers up top until you get the Syndicate. But your level 4 board is going to be hopefully 3 Syndicate, 2 Rapid Fire. Again, depending on the Syndicate character you get, when you go level 5, you can add either a Vanguard or a Bruiser to complement the Darius or Braum up front. In the early game, again, health is really important here, as it is a reroll build and you do bleed out later in the game. So the more health you have, the more rounds you win through stage 2, 3, and 4, the better chances you are of finishing higher up in the ladder. So 2nd, 3rd, 4th, rather than a bottom 4. So your priority here is going to be slamming items. As soon as you have a piece for an item, slam it. You have an early Sunfire's, Even Shroud, Spark, slam it. If you have a few tank items, slam that as well. You need to get through these early rounds. Now, in the early game, as for carousel priority and item priority, a bunch of rods. Essentially, in this build, you need to make Spark, you need to make Gunblade, you need to make Rageblade, and you need to make Archangels. That's 4 rods right there. If you can prioritize that on carousel, maybe get lucky with 2 in the PvE rounds, you're smooth sailing. Spark is the item you're going to prioritize the least, as again, you need those 3 best in slot TF items, and that's what you're going to be using the rods for. But yeah, early game, fairly simple. You're just going to go 3 Syndicate, 2 Rapid Fire, then constantly put in trait bots to help assist with the front line to let TF do its work in the back line. Okay, welcome to the augment section. So augments are fairly straightforward for this build. Obviously, it's a reroll build, specifically somewhat level 6, level 7, which means Starry Nights works wonders. With Starry Nights, you can 3-star your Rost, you can 3-star Twisted Fate, and you can 3-star Darius with a couple clicks of the button. You don't need to worry about grinding out and saving your money. Starry Nights just hands you those 3 stars. Your first augment priority is going to be Econ, as you need some money there to get to 50 gold and then slowly slow roll for your 3 stars. So something like Heroic Grab Bag works wonders. You can do Hedge Fund, you can do Invested Plus, so any kind of econ augments. Not really XP augments, more so gold augments, but you can take a couple XP ones such as Slammin'. I did that in one game. It works wonders because it lets you slow roll through 6 and through 7. As you don't have items on your bench, you can level up slowly as you roll. An early Syndicate Crest works wonders as well, as this eliminates the use for Shaco, and then you can reach that 5 Syndicate a lot sooner, maybe even get lucky and get 7 Syndicate in this build, and that's when you can really cap out and win. So if you end up getting a Prismatic Augment option, beautiful. You want to take Radiant Refractor, Piercing Lotus, maybe Radiant Relics, something to either give you a Radiant Archangel Staff or a solid combat augment to propel you through those rounds where you need to win. So Piercing Lotus is very popular right now, an extremely strong prismatic augment. Slam it if you have it. A silver augment you can take is Silver Spoon, if it's available, to propel you to those levels to get you to 6 faster. Or you can take Pumping Up. Pumping Up works really well, as the more attack speed TF has, the better they do, and the more damage they can produce. Finally, Pandora's items on any stage, prismatic, silver, gold, works wonders, as again, you need a bunch of rods. So because you need a lot of rods, Pandora's items is wonderful. It allows you to slam the best in slot items for everybody. All right, that was the augment section. If you have any suggestions with regards to augments for this build specifically, leave them in the comments below. I'd love to hear them, as this is a build I frequently use when I don't have an angle and almost always get a top 4 with, but I'm always looking to improve just as you guys are. Now onto the gameplay section. All right, chill section of the video, the gameplay breakdown section. In this section, if you're not familiar with it, we just go over the gameplay that's on your screen, how I fared forcing this build for the purpose of this TFT channel and its content. So we went over the specifics earlier in the video. We went over items, we went over final board, we went over augments, we went over early game. So you should be well equipped on how to play this build successfully and to top 4 as much as possible with it. Now it's just the chill section where we hang out. We dissect my gameplay. I forced it for the sake of content in this game here. We took some augments that, one of which I did mention, a couple that I didn't in the augment section. The first being Caretaker's Favor, and then the Prismatic Ticket augment. Piercing Lotus there, I did mention as a prismatic augment. You can take it as a gold augment as well. Works wonders. But Prismatic Ticket I took. I don't recommend that prismatic augment. I hate wasting a prismatic augment on a reroll one, but it was necessary for this build as I needed to get the 3-star Braum, Darius, and TF. As you can see here, I have my utility items on Darius, and then I just throw a Thieves Gloves on Braum, as it wasn't really a high item game currently, as we're not even at stage 4-7, the PvE round here. TF doesn't even have full items yet. So in an ideal world, I would prefer tank items on Braum, 3 of which, hopefully, as round like this, I would have won if I had 3 tank items on Braum, 3 proper tank items. But the way the gameplay went, it just wasn't possible at this stage. I had to slam a Thieves Gloves on them. It worked a lot better in the long run here for this game. Now, you're probably noticing here why I'm at 6 health. So there was a lot of bad decisions in the early game. Trying to force the build. Like I mentioned, you're not supposed to force this build. You need to let the game give it to you. I believe in this game, I did get 2 TFs at the beginning. So the game teased me with it. They're like, here, play TF reroll. You know you want to. You know you want a 4th, not a 1st. And I fell for the bait. I went for it. Later in the game, they just didn't give me TFs. I was stuck holding, what was it, only 6 TFs, I believe, or even less than that for a significant part of stage 3. I didn't hit until extremely late, and that kind of chalked my game up into that point, as I had to roll down and force levels because I had 6 health. I was literally 2 lives away from being out and fast 8. So, however, we did hit and we did 3-star our people, which is what I mentioned in the earlier parts of this video, is if you end up hitting, you are essentially guaranteed almost a top 4 every single game. So even though I am 1 life at stage 5, I am winning with this comp. I slammed 2 Giant Slayers on MF. Yes, not ideal items, but it is 2-star. I have Zeri going on here instead of the Draven because I just didn't have the funds to 3-star Draven or to 3-star any of the 2-cost or Gragas 3-cost up front in addition, as it was a panic roll down for the TF, the Braum, and the Darius. That was the main goal here. I didn't even think about 3-starring Draven, and luck was on our side here with that free 2-star Zeri. So again, in a typical regular world, you're going to be playing hopefully a 3-star Draven on the back line to complement TF, even a 2-star Draven. But in this game, I went with Zeri. It did end up working out pretty well. We are, like I mentioned, on that 1 life, so it is kind of scary here. You face the wrong person and then you're screwed. But with the 3-star Braum, Darius, and TF, you are fairly strong up until the later stages of stage 5. So, like I mentioned earlier in the video, going through stage 4 and then the first 3 rounds of stage 5 is where this build excels. Afterwards, if you don't have all your ducks in a row, it falls off a cliff. If you don't have a strong combat augment, it falls off a cliff. So it's very important to ensure you have all those strong units 3-starred with the proper items. In this game here, like you're watching, I don't even have, like I mentioned, proper items on Braum. That inevitably is our downfall. But regardless, having those items let us get this far with that 1 life. So you'll see from the gameplay here, it's hard to force. It's hard to really kind of make the game give it to you. You have to just kind of let this build come to you and play it. And you're never going to win most of the time with this build. It is just a line to play when you know that you don't have a board that's going to be high cap. And it is a solid top 4 build. I'll give it that. I always, when I play this build, go top 4, like I mentioned earlier in the video. Top 4 is fairly easy to hit with this build. And you'll see in this video, I do end up going top 4. Spoiler alert. I would have probably won out if I 3-starred this Zeri. Spoiler alert again, I don't end up 3-starring this Zeri. But I will take a 4th, especially if I'm at 1 life starting stage 5. So it just kind of goes to show you the strength of this build when you do hit all those characters. Ideally, that prismatic ticket augment would have been the reason why I didn't place higher, in my honest opinion. However, given the way the game was going, I did need it. So in that situation, it was a requirement. Let me know if you've played this build before, how it went for you, how many top 4s you've gotten, how many bottom 4s you've gotten. Like I mentioned, I've never gone to bottom 4 with this build yet, but I've also not gotten a first, or I don't even think I've gone a second with this build. So it is that 3, 4, 5 placement area that you want to hit with this build. Again, minimizing your losses is key in TFT in general. Knowing when you're not going to get a first and playing the strongest board given to you is essentially a strategy in TFT. So here's the final fight. We do end up losing. Same with the guy with 8 health, I believe, or 13 health. We end up finishing 4th. If you enjoyed this video, you enjoyed the gameplay, enjoyed the tips, you have your own tips or comments or anything like that, let me know in the comment below. Otherwise, like the video, subscribe, hang around. I'll have a lot more meta comps and breakdowns coming your way very shortly. Set 15 is coming out end of July. Be prepared for that. I'll be banging out shorts and long form videos to go over all the meta builds, all the new comps, breaking down all the new champs. But until then, enjoy the grind. Have a good one.